Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of I Am Not Sure I Trust a Programmer with KSP Rp-1. So a bit of a short episode today, and I'm actually doing post-commentary because, if you saw the first episode you would have noticed that there was no in-game audio, and I do apologize for that. So this time I managed to get it to record both my voice and the in-game audio, but it did not play nicely. There was a lot of crackling and everything, and honestly it sounded awful. So I considered just not publishing this, but then I decided to give a post commentary a try. It will probably not become a thing though, if I can sort out my audio issues. So yeah, hopefully next episode it will all be sorted out. Anyway, so here today I have accepted the first polar orbit satellite contract, and that's what we're going to be doing. It's I didn't have to write a new program for it or build a new rocket, no modifications. Since I mentioned this last video, this rocket has 1000 meters per second of extra delta V to get into orbit, so just aiming at polar it will be more than enough. So yeah, on with launch in a few seconds. So yeah, I have named this rocket the Rp-1. About my naming convention, I actually had this in my previous careers that I like to name my rockets from after AIs in science fiction. So Giscard is one of the robots in the Asimov movies. I still haven't decided what naming convention I'm going to be using for probes though, but as long as they're not really staying there for more than a couple of orbits, I don't really see the need to get too attached to them by giving them names and such. This one, again, I'm also just going to put in orbit, let it get all the science that it can, and then destroy it before it runs out of power. So here, I'm sorry for, I guess when the launch is not time sensitive, I could just fast forward to the to have it in daylight. But I did spend a lot of time ogling at the skybox here. I don't have the stock skybox. I picked one up in the forums, and it really is quite nice. You can see a lot of the, so there you can see Andromeda. I'm sure I'm going to be pointing it out later in the launch. Spoilers for how the launch. The launch actually went fairly well. I did get a failure in the last second with the RD-103, the performance loss, but it really wasn't going to do anything in the last second. And then two of the XESRs had failures in the end, but not enough to throw it. I did get a considerably lower apogee than the previous launch, but still good enough. So while this launch, also here it's about to get to Miko, and here's I'm actually, since I was still commenting as though I was going to publish with live commentary, I was saying, oh good, no failures, and then yes, last second failure. And then I started panicking because before this I did sounding rockets with these engines to get the reliability up. I do have the test flight mod, and so my previous rocket was basically a two-stage version of this, but of course the program for it had its stage right away, because I just wanted to get as much altitude as I could for the records money. And I completely forgot that this program waited until apogee to fire, so I was panicking, like, oh no, engine failure and then program failure. Then I figured out my mistake, and that it was doing what it was supposed to be, and that's wait until 140 kilometers and then align itself with the horizontal to fire the rocket when it gets close to apogee. So yeah, while it's doing that, I forgot to point out that I was making before. But anyway, with the sound problems that I've had, after this launch, there's nothing. I basically will be done with all the experiments that I can do around low Earth orbit without having to bring them back. So I'm still missing the camera that you can't transmit it, you have to recover. And there's another experiment, I forget which one it is, that also doesn't mass spectrometer, I think it is, yeah. So yeah, those I'm going to have to wait until I can bring stuff back from space. And there's still so I think my next launches are going to be sounding rockets to get the reliability and also thrust curve of the next engines. So yeah, here we have ignition of the second stage, and I believe, yeah, performance loss in one of the XCSRs. Anyway, so yeah, the next launches are going to be sounding rockets with the new engines, but that's still, I believe, like over 100 days away in game days. So I was thinking of doing airplane contracts in the meantime. Now, I'm not honestly sure how much I would be able to talk about on an airplane mission, since these ones, it's basically hold a certain altitude range for 2 or 3 minutes. So I had just thought of doing those off camera, but now I think I'm just going to record it as if I were to publish it and see if I can sort out my sound settings. And yeah, if it turns out all right, not only like sound settings, but also me not awkwardly talking about anything for 3 minutes, I'll probably publish those. And if not, then yeah, the next thing it's going to be the new rockets, which is going to be the orbital rockets now, like so for the R7 and also for the Atlas launchers. But yeah, anyway, back to this launch, it goes, there was lots of performance, but it did not throw the balance off or anything, so it's going fairly well. And I was just ogling at the skybox again. And yeah, I think I was noticing, because I haven't been living in Mexico for over 10 years now. But back when I was there, I never noticed that apparently I could see the Magellanic Clouds from there. I'm further enough south. But back when I was living there, I had my telescope and everything, but I just pointed it at planets. I bought it when I was, I think, 8 or 10 years old, and I never figured out the computer. But I had learned to like spot the planets based on the lack of twinkling of bright stars. Jupiter and Venus are easy because they're the brightest objects out there without the moon. But yeah, eventually I just looked at one, like, oh, that seems to be a planet, and then aimed at it, and it had rings, so it was a very nice find. But yeah, now that I know a little bit more, I think I'm going back there in December, and my telescope is still there, so I should look for the Magellanic Clouds, see if obviously I know they won't fit in the field of view, but it will be interesting to see like how much detail I can get out of it. I did used to live between Mexico City and Toluca, which are two really big cities that cause a lot of light pollution. but I think it's also high enough that like the night sky is not as bad as some places that I've seen here in Europe. Anyway, so rocket made orbit again, like I said, no problem. Considerably lower apogee than last time, but it did not matter. And then I also had a contract to do science around Earth. And yeah, I also wanted to make the point here that I don't know about this version of RP1, but I remember in previous versions, excuse me, if you could radio in science that you had already done, and it would still consider the contract complete, and it was just a cheesy way to milk money. And maybe even just doing these contracts is still cheesy, but I expect to go bankrupt when I start missing the moon. Anyway, but yeah, I've decided that if the experiment is not giving me new science, I'm not going to send it. So yeah, that was the only launch for this episode, and now I got all the science that I was missing from low Earth orbit. And at this point, last episode I said I was just going through the least science requirements to max out the turbo construction time points. Now I decided, okay, I need to focus on better thrusters for actually having control in space, and also heat shields to be able to bring those last experiments that I'm missing. Because otherwise I'm not going to be getting new science for a while. And that might like halt the program, so that's unacceptable. And then I had also thought about doing the sun synchronous orbit contract, but luckily I checked the requirements and I noticed again like there's a eccentricity requirement, and I do not have that sort of control with the Giscard one. So yeah, that's going to have to wait also until I have the orbital rocket engines. Actually, no, more than the orbital rocket engines, the thrusters for good control. I think that's what I need for this contract. So yeah, I think the next contracts are going to be solar powered and X-Plane contracts. So I'm a bit on a I'm losing words. Like, I'm not going to get any new like funds coming in for a while. But anyway, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time without sound problems. Goodbye.